What do you do on Sundays?
We talk about Cate Blanchett, the acting, the costumes, the awards, but mostly the Blanchett of it all.
I'm not acting.
You think this is a love affair?
I saw you, Erica. Meeting in the middle.
This is Sundays with Cate, and I'm your host, Murtada Elfadl.
Hi, and welcome to Sundays with Cate. I'm Murtada Elfadl. I'm very excited to launch the third season of the podcast. I hope you enjoy all the episodes that I have been planning. I wanted to start by saying thank you for continuing to listen to the podcast. Thank you for sharing in social media. I appreciate everyone who interacts. It really means a lot. Please listen till the end as I will detail all that's in store for this new season of the podcast. But now, let's dig into this week's movie. And this week, we are discussing the last movie that Cate Blanchett had in theaters in this year, where we haven't been to the theater that much. I think it's a nice memory. So it's Where'd You Go, Bernadette, the Richard Linklater movie that was released in the US in August of 2019. And my guests this week, I'm very excited to have them, are Connor O'Donnell and Dan Mecca, hosts of the B-Side podcast. Hi, Connor and Dan.
Hi.
What's up? Good to be here.
Yeah.
Happy whatever time this is that you're listening. We're still in our homes watching Cate Blanchett movies.
Yes. So last time the three of us talked, we talked about another actress I love and we all love, Meryl Streep, which was for an episode of your podcast.
That's right.
The B-Side.
Yes.
And you guys have done Cate Blanchett a few years ago on your podcast. So there is that episode. People who are not familiar with your podcast and listen to Sundays with Cate, go find that episode of Cate Blanchett on the B-Side.
Yeah, and I think a mutual friend, right, Gavin Mevius is on that, who I'm sure, Murtada, you know Gavin, right?
Yeah, so for listeners of this podcast, Gavin has been on the pod twice.
Yeah.
We have talked about Indiana Jones and we've talked about Hannah with Gavin.
That's right. Yeah, so he's on that Cate. So he's talked about Cate a lot. Yeah, that was a fun podcast. Him and our friend Karen. Anyway, yeah.
So let's start with just your general impression of Cate. So let's start with you, Dan. What do you think of Cate, and do you remember the first time that you saw Cate?
Yeah, it's a good question. So Cate, I think as long as I have been a fan of her, and she, basically 98 is what I always think of Cate, with Elizabeth and everything that came after. It was a pretty quick ascent, which I'm sure you've talked about many times. So, but here's what's funny. Certainly that's not the first thing I saw her in. This is going to sound crazy, but I'm fairly certain the first motion picture I ever saw the actress Cate Blanchett in was The Shipping News.
Oh, no.
Because I talk about my mom Julie all the time on our podcast. My mom Julie loves Where'd You Go, Bernadette, which we'll talk about. So she was one of those people who would always get those movies. So she certainly had read The Shipping News and certainly rented The Shipping News, and I certainly watched it, and I certainly was too young, and it certainly was a strange bad movie that I still remember. And Blanchett's in it, though not a lot, as I recall. And and then I think, aside from that, I regard her, the way many regard her as obviously, if not our greatest living actress, certainly in the top 3, right? Laura Dern, Viola Davis, right? It's like,
yeah.
And so, and
she's
and one of my favorite movies ever is The Aviator, and she, of course, won her Oscar for that movie. So, if
Did
nothing
she?
else, yeah, she won the Oscar for The Aviator.
One of her 2 Oscars.
One of her 2.
Oh, okay. I was thinking. Okay.
Apologies. Yes.
Yeah.
But so if for no other role, her involvement in The Aviator, I mean, I love her forever.
Yeah. And Connor, what about you and Cate?
Me and Cate go way back, obviously. No, I should say too, I mean, listeners, this isn't going to matter to you, but I did dress for the occasion tonight.
Yes.
I'm wearing my Cinephile card game Cate Blanchett T-shirt right now. No, I would
And that's
say
Stephen Carroll, right? Am I?
yes.
Is that
yes,
right?
it is. Yeah, which I will say, I think for the record, is probably my favorite performance of hers. But no, I think the first time I was ever aware of her as an actress, I hadn't really seen Elizabeth yet, but I knew, like, I was aware of that movie when it came out. But I think The Gift actually is like the first thing that I saw her in and was like, oh, this is who Cate Blanchett is. And then I probably got around to Elizabeth a little later, but kind of like Dan said, I feel like, probably for us and any other viewers / listeners of a certain age around that time, it's like she kind of wasn't there and then she was there, and then she had I feel like a pretty quick ascent into just the forefront of like international movie stardom. And I think even with, kind of, it's like it was bifurcated with like you have, your Elizabeths and your talented Mr. Ripley's and things like that. So she's just kind of like popping into all these little genres, and then she pops up in the Lord of the Rings movies, which, like, even if you're not obviously watching it for her because she's a supporting character, it's like she's still very present, right?
Absolutely.
In something that's like a monster hit. So it's I don't know. Her career is a fascinating one, and like Dan said, she's just it's hard to kind of leave her out of any conversation about like the greats of all time. So, and
also, Connor, you have me remembering another movie around that time, which I certainly, right next to the shipping news, was Bandits. I think I saw Bandits like in theaters. I don't know why. I mean, that was kind of a hot movie, I feel like.
I really love. I have a soft spot for that. Have you talked about The Gift, Murtada?
We have talked about The Gift, yes. Yeah. It was one of the first movies that we actually did.
Didn't you not like it? Am I misremembering? Or do you like The Gift?
I don't like it. I thought The Gift was a little bit of mismatch of genres, like I felt. Sure. But it has things going for it for sure.
A lot of acting with an A, as we talked about in that movie.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. Actually, Dan, I'm happy you mentioned Bandits, because when I reviewed Where'd You Go, Bernadette, when it came out, the movie or the performance that it reminded me of a little bit was Bandits. Bernadette, like Kate Wheeler in Bandit, is sort of another chaotic person who is very disillusioned with her role as a wife. Although, like the outlines are the same. And it's one of those, Kate loves to play these chaotic, unraveling women. Like, she does that a lot.
Blue Jasmine is one of those for sure. Yeah.
Well, no, you're totally right, though, Murtada. Like, it's very common with her, even if I'm just like looking at her filmography as we speak, like Charlotte Gray, is like that, right? Like there are like movies where it's like,
which was also with Billy Crudup.
Exact. So this was Bernadette was a Billy Crudup reunion for Kate. Yeah.
And even like Heaven, where she's it's funny, you're right. She's always playing these characters who are like fighting against a status quo of some sort. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Where'd You Go, Bernadette, which is the topic of conversation today, is based on the bestseller by Maria Semple. And Kate plays Bernadette Fox, one of the many titular characters she has played. Like you mentioned, Charlotte Gray, but also Veronica Guerin, Blue Jasmine, Carol. She always is the title role.
You'll never guess what happened. She disappeared. Bernadette.
Bernadette.
Bernadette! Bernadette.
Bernadette.
Oof.
The film is about a genius architect who, after having big success early on in her career, suffers a major setback that debilitates her creativity. It starts 15 years after that with her in Seattle living as a mother and wife. She's married to Billy Crudup's Elgie, who's a creator at Microsoft. And sort of in the absence of this creative work as an architect, she fills her days taking care of her daughter and starting these little wars with her neighbors and the other mothers at the private school that her daughter goes to. She detests all of them. It's a portrait of this chaotic life, but also a mother-daughter story and the story of the disintegration of a marriage.
Hey, who are you?
I was just wondering that myself. I'm not good when exposed to people.
None of the other mothers like you, Bernadette. Did you know that?
Say amen to that.
So this movie, had it was a huge bestseller, and I read the book before it was even optioned. And when I read the book, I sort of pictured Annette Bening in this role. But then, once Cate was announced, I'm like, you know what? That's even better casting. But it had like a protracted sort of way to release. It was moved a few times. There were several screenwriters. It was first, the screenplay was written by Michael Green and Scott Neustadler, who wrote 500 Days of Summer and The Fault in Our Stars and The Spectacular Now. And then when Richard Linklater was hired, I think he reworked it and brought on his own people. And it's sort of a hard book to adapt. So fans of the book, I think, have always been disappointed by this movie. Although I like the movie on its own, but I think fans of the books are a little disappointed because the book is a collection of letters and emails and notes. And I don't know, have you guys read the book?
No, my wife read the book. And we actually moments ago just finished watching the movie, so we were kind of talking about the differences and things like that, and she had mentioned what you just said, and I kind of thought it kind of, I guess we'll get into it, but it kind of explained a lot for me when you think of the sort of, I would assume, sort of kind of piecemeal nature of the book and the way that would be collected if it's a series of documents and conversations and emails and memos and things like that. Yeah. It's that structure in and of itself is already feeling kind of playful. And I feel like if you're not absorbing this information through that kind of playful structure, it's a little, I feel like certain aspects of the movie can probably feel like a little bit much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the book is just literally a series of emails and letters and notes. That's how the story is told. And there is a very funny quote from Richard Linklater at the time when he talked to Vulture, and he said, you read, this is the quote, you read a book and you have a movie in your head. You read Maria's book, it's so unconventional, so quirky, so weird. I don't think anyone comes out with a movie. What's the movie that you get from that book? A bunch of emails?
Exactly. Yeah.
that I also just finished reading that Vulture piece that you mentioned, which is if you're listening, listener, that it's a kind of a good reference if you've watched the movie and read the book or haven't read the book. It's like a good sort of quick rundown of like the key differences, and I think explains a lot of what some people who aren't huge fans of the movie might not like and how they came to be. But one of the things he also mentioned is that, in the book, apparently it takes a while for you to kind of even get to Bernadette. Right. And he had said, if you're casting Cate, you don't put Cate Blanchett in your movie mm-hmm. to have her be some sort of supporting force in your movie. Like it's a Cate Blanchett movie, which obviously this movie very much is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what do you guys think of the movie? Like, just, Dan, why don't we start with you?
Sure.
What's your positive, negative? You like it?
Yeah, I'm very positive on this movie. I was positive on it last year when it came out. I saw it in theaters. I was on a little family vacation, checking in on a family member situation with my mom and my sister. So we all took a night off and went and saw it, and we all liked it. And like I mentioned before, my mom really liked it. They really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. We talked about it after. It's obviously an extremely odd movie in the way it approaches its narrative. Like I was saying, rewatching it with my wife yesterday, I mentioned if you just erase the book and just think of it as a movie, it kind of ends in the middle. Like there's like a climactic scene in the middle of the movie, and then there's like an hour that gets you to Antarctica. So just that alone, in terms of writing and watching a movie and narrative thinking, and what years of watching content trains your brain, whether you know it or not, to think of what is good, mm-hmm. what makes sense. I do understand watching this movie and having the thought, this is not good because I don't understand why they're doing it this way. Right. So yeah, I do formally, I can get how it rubs people the wrong way. For whatever reason, I really enjoyed the weirdness. I mean, maybe it's because we all see a lot of movies. Maybe that's why. But I appreciated it, and I loved. I think it's probably Kristen Wiig's I don't know, best performance since Bridesmaid.
It's very funny.
That whole relationship I like a lot. Like that dynamic, I think, is a lot of fun.
Kristen Wiig plays this neighbor who pretends that Bernadette run her over and broke her leg. So
yeah, and rewatching it, I was emboldened to like it more. Frankly, watching it yesterday, I upped it a half a star on my letterbox. I was like, oh, this is better, better than I remember. So yeah, that's where I stand on this movie. Yeah.
And Connor, so have you seen the movie when it came out, or did you just see it?
I only just watched it for the first time. I will admit to you, I remember kind of skipping it when it came out because there at the time was sort of a tepid / negative reaction to it. With movies like this all the time, I'm glad that I had mentioned this recently on an episode we recorded for the B-side for a different movie, but it was a movie at the time that had a kind of a strong reaction to it, and then nobody thought about it and whatever, and a strong negative reaction, I should say, and nobody really thought about it. And then you watch it a year, 2, 3 years later, and you're like, oh, this is like perfectly fine. Like, why didn't it? And I kind of felt the same way about this movie. Like, I'm kind of with you, Dan. Like, I think even its problems are like interesting problems. I can definitely see things I maybe would have done, especially in a world where if you're gonna adapt a book, and even an unconventional one, and you're going to change it, I don't see any reason why somebody would feel that beholden to keep certain aspects of a story in place. Overall, I liked it, and I think the Blanchett performance is really the thing that is the worthwhile thing. It's like the obviously the star attraction. I think the big thing that kept me from like really loving this movie was just its commitment to maybe some of the broader aspects of the story. Where,
like what? Like an example of what broader aspect are you talking about?
For instance, right? Can we get into spoilers? Is it?
Yeah,
really,
let's get into spoilers.
Okay.
Everyone listening, this movie is on Hulu. We're gonna spoil, so you can pause this, go to Hulu, watch it, come back.
So the mid-movie climax, which I'm pretty sure you were alluding to, Dan, is this intervention, right?
Yeah.
And part of that intervention is what felt to me like a really kind of broad stroke of like identity theft. And I understand that that's a part of the novel as well. But I feel like for maybe some of the more core emotional aspects of the movie, in terms of like the seriousness of what that's going through, like psychologically, because of the state that her life is in and things like that, I think you can get to the state of an intervention without something as sort of insane as identity theft from like the Russian mob. Again, if it's a part of the narrative of the book, I can understand how that's also kind of, it is sort of this wild, funny swing as well. Like I think the agent character who steps in and has a couple nice cracks, like it's funny and it works, and it was definitely
dude. The part where the agent, and I forgot about this, I was like cackling, and that's maybe the thing about a rewatch that made me like it more. Yeah. They're on the porch, and they've had this intervention, and Bernadette runs away, right? And then where'd you go, Bernadette? Right? They're trying to find her. And they're all, it's Billy Crudup playing What If Bill Gates was Steve Jobs, and they're all on the deck on the patio, and they're like, where is she? And the guy, the FBI agent's like, we got him, we got the Russian guy, like problem solved. And Billy Crudup's like, but where, like he's like, we're worried about Bernadette, and he goes, oh well, yeah, that's a whole nother problem. But this
no, right? It's
funny in the Linklater way, which I think gets a little lost in this adaptation, not in the movie itself, but in the reception. The thing that Linklater does so well throughout his career, and you can go back to Slacker to see this. This might sound like nothing, but it is something. He knows how to not cut away, where like he knows, just hold the camera on the wide of all the people and let the joke play out. Like, you don't need to do a punchline cut into the guy making a fit. Like, just let it be funny. Like, we're all watching it. You don't need to make it busy, and that is smart filmmaking that makes it funnier. And that's why, like, everybody, what is it called? Everybody Wants Some, right? Like,
everybody wants some.
These movies, some of these movies, they come out, they get a little, like, get a shrug. And then, like, 2 years later, people are like, that's a really funny movie. And it's like, yeah, it is. Like, maybe it's not, blowing your hair back in the back row of a theater. But that's, I think, credit to Linklater as much as those performers. Yeah, I love that scene.
I have to say, like, I agree sort of with what you were saying about like the broader aspects. And I have to say the book, as somebody who was a fan of the book before I even knew Cate and Linklater are going to do a movie of it, like the book is so much funnier and its tone is pure comedy. And it comes, so that's why like in that sort of context, these things where like she is speaking with this virtual assistant Manjula, who's supposedly in India but turns out to be part of the Russian mob, you get it, because everything is very, very funny, really out there in sort of the comedic way.
As it stands on the screen, and this isn't even necessarily a knock, like maybe this is something Linklater had in his brain, but like you could see this getting made by Q-Core with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, and totally. Katharine Hepburn's the one who's up and runs away to Antarctica, right? Like it's got these old school screwball broad strokes to it that I don't really necessarily have a problem with. I think it's when those things kind of try and get dovetailed with like the mother-daughter relationship and this, seemingly very earnest insight into someone who's suffering a mental breakdown. There feels like a weird disconnect there. And so I like I had mentioned before, I still liked the movie for what it was putting out there. I just don't know if like all the things that Linklater's trying to take a swing at like gel as much as I maybe would have hoped that they would.
I agree. I think if there is somebody miscast here, it's Linklater. Like if you wanted to adapt the book and make it into what the book was about, I think what's lost in the adaptation is the social satire that in the book. So the book, the sort of Audrey character displayed by Kristen Wiig is a bigger part of the narrative. And also like the war between them is very funny. They spar a lot more than they do in the movie. And it's sort of that sort of character and that relationship and that basically war between Bernadette and Audrey is sort of how Semple is trying to critique this sort of like Seattle people, who work for tech companies, who have a lot of money, who, come and try to change the city. And it's very funny in the book. And I think in the movie that's lost.
Bernadette, just get out once in a while. Be in the real world and interact with people. Maybe that would make you not so paranoid.
I think we're done here.
No, we are not done. We are not done
Again,
here.
I want to apologize for the sign. It was a little inappropriate, and I intend to take full responsibility, okay? In terms of the Gaylor Street School. In terms of money.
Now you don't care about Gaylor Street. You don't care about anything. You don't care about your house. You don't care about your yard. You certainly don't care about this neighborhood. Do you know that within a 4-mile radius is the house my grandmother grew up in, the house my mother grew up in, and the house that I grew up in?
That I believe.
And you come in here with your Microsoft money and buy this 9,000 square foot teardown in the middle of this charming neighborhood, and you think that's going to make you belong? Well, you don't belong, Bernadette, and you never will.
But I think where the movie is more successful is in the portrait of the mother-daughter relationship. It's very poignant. It's very beautiful. There are scenes between them, and the chemistry between Cate and Emma Nelson, who plays the daughter B, is really great. And it sort of, like they talk about, which is in the book too, but I think I felt it more in the movie. They talk about how, B was a difficult birth and she had to take care of her, and sort of like, this is, and even B with her dad, she's always like, no, my mom will never leave me. I know that we have to go and find her because she will never leave me. There was, he thinks that maybe she's never coming back or she's trying to harm herself or something. And she's like, no, you don't know. While you were working, we lived the life together. And sort of that's very poignant and beautiful. And I felt that in the movie more. And also sort of the disintegration of the marriage story. I think that's also very well done in the script by Linklater and his co-writers. In sort of, what if somebody, you're in love and you go through all these things, but then a calamity befalls one in a marriage, which is what happened to Bernadette, and the other person stops seeing them for the person they fell in love with. And sort of like, there is a scene where, the war escalates between Bernadette and Audrey, and a mudslide falls into Audrey's house. And then Bernadette, of course, is at fault. That was her fault. And she's having dinner with B, and LG, who's the husband, played by Billy Crudup, comes, and he's like, oh, I came to check on Bernadette. And B tells him, no, you came to yell at her. And Audrey has already done that, and it was bad. And that scene so moved me. It's like, especially when you go back and the movie tells us like how they fell in love and how they were both brilliant and smart and into each other. And really, he did come just to yell at her. So it sort of portrays the sort of disintegration of the marriage really, really well.
And I think it does does so in a way that I think Linklater at least does his best to try and craft with like a really, really delicate hand. It is something, I mean, what I think is kind of funny is like thematically it still is like a Richard Linklater movie through and through, right? Yes. There's a lot that this has in common with the Before trilogy or Boyhood, or all, like a lot of those same kind of things pop up. But the scene, I can't remember, I think it's like right before what you were talking about. But one of the sequences that struck me the most is this cross-cutting sequence that I think is really lovely, where Cate Blanchett, Bernadette, goes to see, I can't remember Fishburne's name in the movie. But
he's her colleague, so he's her.
Yeah,
it's another architect who's Bernadette's
he's another
colleague.
Architect. I can't recall his name, but he's played by Lawrence Fishburne, and she goes and she kind of talks to him and she vents to him about kind of all the things, Murtada, that you were just talking about, and it's cross-cut with Billy Crudup finally going to see a psychiatrist who's played by Judy Greer. Who's always lovely, Judy Greer. Good for Judy Greer, love her. But it's this thing of these two people recounting essentially the same sequence of events from two distinct perspectives, and neither one of them are incorrect necessarily, which I think is super interesting. And even if you want to look at some of Billy Crudup's behavior or the way he's reacted in an antagonistic way, which I think the movie, like I said, does a pretty deft job of like lightly casting him as maybe an antagonist without fully vilifying him or anything like that. And also finds this way to look at, I think, more seriously some of the things Bernadette is going through and some of the more maybe aggressive ways she's reacting to it that aren't necessarily acceptable, while also not necessarily casting her as an antagonist either. I think it's a really nice little act that the movie attempts. I think after that, like Dan mentioned, after that sort of mid-movie climax, when we get into kind of full where'd you go running off to Antarctica kind of thing, I think it's an interesting thing, at least for me as a viewer, because I think the movie has some of its nicest moments that I really liked, like just earnestly sweet moments, things like that. But it also,
they're coming together, the daughter and the mom and the husband and wife,
and even the button that it puts on her relationship with Kristen Wiig, scene where they're sitting down and Kristen Wiig has kind of essentially tried to help her out as she's sort of spiraling and trying to make it through all this. I think that's all really nice. But it is also where the movie does decide to go like full broad, like she's running off to Antarctica, and it's this mad sort of dash.
Yeah, it's just sort of taking care of the plot. The plot that's in the book. They just have to sort of serve that to us.
Right.
Dan, do you think Linklater was the right person for this material?
Yeah, well, look, I really, like I said, I really enjoyed the movie, so I have to say yes, because I want it to exist, and I'm happy to, you know what I mean? I can't really conceive of another. I mean, it's an interesting, Connor, the George Cukor kind of, slapstick. That's an interesting, if you had a time machine type of a thing. I get that. I do think what you get with Linklater, though, is a movie that it's interesting. I think you get a movie that maybe is not as funny as the book, as you say, Murtada, but you get that lovely scene at the end, which I know we're alluding to, where Bernadette is making a call from the South Pole, essentially, to her daughter and her husband, basically explaining herself and like coming to the realization she needs to come to, that, she allowed herself to become a passive person. She allowed herself to stop creating. She's realized that she's like forcing circumstances to make her become this outsider so as to like, legitimize this legendary status that was put on her almost against her will in her becoming hermetic after the failure of her like first, dream project, and how this opportunity that comes from the Antarctica trip will kind of, spark her into a new life. And while she's delivering this voicemail, Billy Crudup and their daughter are actually in the room, like hiding behind the door, listening and crying. And that is a lovely scene. And Linklater, Linklater makes lovely movies. That's like, he is totally that guy. Like, and he can't help himself, right? Like, and that's for better or worse, right? The Newton Boys, which nobody talks about, which is his first studio movie that no one really saw. McConaughey's in it, and Ethan Hawke and everything. It's like the nice version of a bank robber movie. I mean, it's literally, if you watch it, it's like, oh, those Newton Boys, they were good old boys. They robbed banks. And it's like, Linklater, his belief in the human spirit, and he's very open about this if you listen to him speak, is so, it's so, like, that's why School of Rock is like a masterpiece, probably, because it's like this, the Jack Black plus Linklater thing is like this concoction of happiness, right? Because it's just two people who feel like we're put on this earth to just make you be like, okay, it's all right, and so you have it's a weird mix. I mean, I'll admit that forever. It's a weird mix, and I think if you ask me who could have done Where'd You Go, Bernadette, from what we're talking about of the book, I would certainly say who's the director of Nomadland, who directed The Rider?
Oh, Chloe Zhao.
Chloe Zhao, right? Like you give me Chloe Zhao, where maybe it's not funny, but like what the through line is getting at, maybe that's like a more straightforward kind of dramatic thing. But I don't know if I want to see that as much as this, honestly.
Well, who I was thinking of while I was watching it, and this isn't. I like this director overall. What I'm going to compare it to isn't necessarily a compliment, and I think this movie is better. But I was thinking a lot about Aloha while watching this movie, because I also think Cameron Crowe and Richard Linklater are very similar. The way you just described Linklater is exactly the way I would describe Crowe, right?
Yeah,
It's
we bought a zoo. We bought a zoo's pretty close to this movie.
No. I guess that's what I'm saying is like there's an earnestness to this movie, and obviously to Linklater's body of work, to Cameron Crowe's body of work, that's on display here. I think that on its face is a thing that can automatically turn people off. One thing that I think is initially kind of not quite palpable about this movie is just the privilege on display in like all its main characters, right? And but one of the weird things I think that's genius in the way Linklater kind of pulls a rabbit out of a hat in it is that it makes them all kind of automatically unlikable depending on who you are watching this movie. But when you get to scenes like the scene with Kristen Wiig and Cate Blanchett kind of finally making amends, when you get to the end of the movie and it's just nice and warm, those characters are the exact kind of characters you need them to be able to illustrate Linklater's point, right? Because like the idea being that like even these bougie people in this extremely privileged state with seemingly no deep-rooted connections or humanity can like find it in them to like have these connections and have this humanity. And it sounds to me, and Murtada, correct me if this is not true, I suppose, but it sounds to me like maybe sort of an antithetical point to something that the book was trying to illustrate, specifically as it pertains to like the society and the culture that the book and the movie take place within, shows the good in people. I think a key point in that is that, as far as I know, the assistant character is a little bit more prominent in the book, insofar as I believe that is a more like full-fledged affair with the Billy Crudup character.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think to the point that you're making here, it's that the movie is nicer to all the characters than the book is. Like the book is definitely more critical of Audrey, more critical of LG, the husband character. He does go into an affair with his assistant Su Lin. So there is all those things that are happening, and the book is also very critical of just the privileged milieu of Seattle. I think that's the main thing. Like Maria Semple has another book that's also set in the same Seattle milieu, and she's in both books. She's very critical of that, and I think she's somebody she was a TV writer. She wrote for Mad About You and other shows, and then she moved to Seattle sometime, and she just wrote novels about how Seattle sucks.
And I think he holds on to a bit of that. Like that whole scene at the party, and she makes the comment about like Jeff Bezos's brother-in-law is here or whatever, which is I suppose a cute little joke considering it's an Amazon movie, but the bit
of when the kids are singing it's like a song from Africa, right?
That whole and because it's all wrapped up in that one scene, and then almost like this retribution or act of God kind of thing, this mudslide comes in and crashes the party. I mean, it's really satisfying, and to sort of hold on to a little bit of that criticism and a little bit of that satire. I think it still works, but it definitely doesn't seem as it's not so pervasive. Yeah, exactly. It's not so pervasive that I would call the movie a satire or anything like that.
It's funny, I don't know when this podcast will come out. As we're recording, Mank, the movie Mank, is currently available recently on Netflix, and there is a similar, weirdly enough, there is a similar thing in Bernadette and Mank, where it's the turning the face on liberalism at a high level of, at the high in the 1%, right? Like that I find refreshing and perhaps more cutting on a rewatch than you would necessarily think upon first viewing in both cases. And both movies were, and as we speak, Mank are kind of critically hemmed and hawed over, which I also find, I think when you approach this stuff, yeah, that's kind of bullshit, right? What all you guys are talking about, right? Like we get down to the nitty gritty of da-da-da-da-da and the charter schools of it all and d-d-d-d-d. I like that. And then I always think it's interesting how they are sometimes received in a way that's a little okay, a little too close to home, maybe? Yeah. So I had me thinking about both. Which I liked.
One other thing that I really liked about the movie is that it tells the story of what if someone's life work, the one thing that their whole life was wrapped around, was violently taken away from them. Can they ever recover? And sort of what does their life become if they can't recover? Or what is the sort of chaos they live in and the sort of half-life they can easily fall into if that one thing was so taken away? And sort of this is where we find Bernadette, and I think the movie sort of tells the story of what it's going to take for her to go back to the person she was 15 years ago, where the center of gravity of her life was her work. And I love that, she plays a genius and a creator and somebody, who was used to doing things and hasn't really done anything in 15 years, and how hard it can go back to that.
Yeah, and I think the juxtaposition of her to her husband, right, who is a Steve Jobs-y type of a guy and is a creator in his own right, but of course the huge difference is, the capitalism, the profit margins, the innovation, that's all bundled together. It's very clear, and he's clearly comfortable with it, right? Whereas Bernadette, Cate Blanchett, is one of these people that the minute money got involved in in her dream, and her if I put this, if I have to take this thing and I put it in here and I do this, wouldn't that be beautiful? And then when it became yes, and also we can do all this stuff, it breaks her, which, look, you read about. I mean, you read about with, any manner of creator in different mediums. And that's a real thing. And I think you're totally right. And I think at the time I saw this movie, the stuff I liked the least a year ago was her watching the YouTube stuff. I kind of thought like, oh, this is a little too, you have like Megan Mullally on a laptop, right? It's very like what, Steve Zahn is showing up. Right?
Yeah.
But on a rewatch, I'm like, no, if you know about the book, right, which I, once again, I haven't read, but we're talking about the mediums and whatnot. That's a clever way to bring that into the fold in a cinematic way. And that's how you would do that now, right? Like the devices in our lives becoming part of our narratives. That's a good example. Like you would go down an hour-long rabbit hole of like, oh, I'm on the internet. Oh my God, this thing's on the internet. My arch nemesis. And like, so it actually worked way better for me this time. And I think that comes through, I don't know, poignantly. Thank you.
You've got a couple little other flourishes that are kind of cherries on top of that narrative that Linklater is trying to sell in the movie, because it's clearly a through line. Like the idea that the crucial piece of technology Crudup has invented is literally like merging a full connection between technology and human thought, right? Like literally cutting out the middleman as much as possible, kind of thing. And then you put that on top of the fact that that her virtual assistant is not even an entity, right? She isn't even directly typing these emails or text messages to this virtual assistant, right? She's talking to her phone to do it for her.
But the beauty of it is that it's still doing what she's asking. Like, that's what I love about that whole bit.
Dear Mandula, something unexpected has come up, and I would love it if you would work extra hours. I don't know what time it is right now in India, but please let me know ASAP if you're available, because I need you to work your Hindu magic on a huge project, period. Okay, I'll stop being coy. It's a total disaster.
And Connor, I'm so happy you brought up the one where she's just talking to the virtual assistant Manjula, because those scenes are so funny to me. Cate is always a physical actor. She acts with her whole body, and in those scenes she's walking and talking with the headset on, and while she's sitting and getting up and moving, and never there is this chaotic energy to her while she is dictating these long emails to the virtual assistant. And it's sort of in those moments, which are early in the movie, you get who this woman is. You get this woman is somebody who has a lot of energy, a lot of creative energy, but she doesn't know what to do with it. So she throws it all into these long emails that never stop. And it is a way for the script, but also for Cate, to sort of show us who Bernadette is.
Yeah, I mean, I would put this right up there with her performances. I mean, I would have to go and rank them, but this is, I think, a top fiver for me for Cate. I mean, I think those scenes alone, where she's just like Will Smith and I Am Legend. She's just like in a house, just like by herself, talking to no one, like and literally no one. We learn, of course, later, with the most accurate like talk to text in the history of the world, and like
exclamation point, just the
right period. It's like, oh, is that how that works? But one moment, two moments, but they're like of a piece, is when B gets in the car, and the moment when Kristen Wiig doesn't get hit by the car. B gets in the car, and Kristen Wiig's character is running to like get her attention in the pickup line at school, and Cate Blanchett turns to B and is like, "What are we gonna do? Like, should we wait?" And then B's like, "No, or the dog's in trouble." Like, and it's such a beautiful mother-daughter moment that feels so earnest. And she drives away. That moment, and then maybe it's a different actually scene, but they're in the car again and they're singing. What's the song?
Cyndi Lauper. Time after time.
My God.
That was I think the moment that I like fell in love a little bit. Like I was like, oh, this is a Richard Linklater movie. Like this is that. And to your point, Murtada, about her. And she does this a lot, not just in this movie, but like she acts with her whole body, right? And I kept, that it goes to that time after time scene, and I'm waiting for the high pitched "I will be waiting," and the fact that like it, Blanchett's the one that delivers it, and she just kind of like leans into it. It's like a really nice. There's that, and then there's also that little scene where she goes and the architecture student catches her at like the library, and she's trying to like walk away after this architecture student has asked to take a photo with her. And as this woman's still talking to her, she walks away and then sort of like maybe realizes what she did was rude. And so like as a human, she should like say goodbye. But Blanchett just gives this wonderful half turn, like whatever, just sort of waves her hand a little bit. And it's like those things I think that make a performance like this worth watching, right? Because it's not, I don't think there's anything specific about it that needs to be Cate Blanchett, other than maybe if you're, to your point earlier, Murtada, if you're looking at it through the lens of the kinds of characters, she plays these kinds of characters a lot. So other than that, maybe that's why you gravitate towards Blanchett. But I could certainly see a number of other perfectly capable actors probably playing this role fine. But I do think what makes it special, and what I think, to Dan's point, what makes it like a top fiver for anybody is all that little stuff that gets poured into it, which I think maybe a lesser actor wouldn't so sort of innately put into it.
Yeah, the flourishes that she gives the character.
Yeah.
And in that time after time scene, that is a highlight of the movie for me too, and I love it. And there is a line there that I had to rewind and write down because I just was moved so much by it. So this is my positive up to Linklater, because I think that's his line as a writer. But also Cate delivers it really well, where she's listening and talking with her daughter, and she says, "I retain the right to be moved by those little things no one notices." And it is a beautiful line, and she delivers it really well.
And it's like what I love about that scene, I think, is you sort of learn so little about her as the movie goes on until there are kind of a handful of sort of information dumps, and you're like, oh, like this is why this person is the way that they are. And I feel like that scene is one of the first like truly humanizing scenes, because I think for the first portion of this movie, you're almost, because of the way it's structured, it is a little hard to get a beat on her, kind of, where you're like, oh, are you just like a cold human, or are you like going through some shit? Or, like, I feel like the movie could reveal any number of things to be true. Right. And so in terms of where you settle on Bernadette as a character, whether that's positively or negatively, I think remains to be seen for a certain portion of the movie. And then that scene happens, and it is this really wonderful humanizing moment. And you sort of realize that it's that, she's not just necessarily being rude to people. She sort of is just having none of the bullshit, right? Particularly as it pertains to some of the other mothers at school and things like that, and the Seattle culture in general. And it's, I don't know, that scene warmed me from just deep down inside.
Yeah, it's a highlight of the film. Absolutely.
Heavy recommend from me. Seek it out. We should say, remind me the young actress's name who
Emma
plays
Nelson.
B. A really good child performance, I think.
Yeah,
she's great.
Which
and this
is not
her first.
every day.
This is her first film too. So that is no small task, I think, for even an actor who's been doing it for years. I think to be able to kind of sit next to Cate Blanchett and hold your own in terms of chemistry and the back and forth. So definitely, aces.
Yeah. She's great. And if there's anything that I want to come out of from this movie, like I think Cate and Kristen Wiig should do another movie together where they really fight it out to the end. Like I think they have complementary comic timing that they can do something.
Where's their notes? Their more comedic notes on a scandal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be great. This is a good segue, Dan, to talk about Cate's career. So I know you said maybe Bernadette is in your top 5. I'm not going to ask you to do a top 5 on the spot, but right off the top of your head, can each of you guys do like a top 3 Cate?
Sure.
We start with you, Dan.
Her performances.
Performances, yes.
Performances. Yeah, this would be in my top 5, but probably not in my top 3. And then probably her voice work in Eyes Wide Shut. Just kidding. No, I mean, so I would say if I'm talking about the one and only Cate Blanchett, the three performances, I'm going to have to go. I hate to be unoriginal, but you have to go Blue Jasmine. You have to go Blue Jasmine. I mean, she's incredible in that movie. You can't deny it. And then I would probably go. I would not put The Aviator in there, though I do love it. It's right up there. But this is going to be controversial, but I love this movie, so I'm going to put it in. Heaven. I just love that movie. I would have to rewatch it for her performance to really like, but because it's a lesser seen movie, Heaven would be up there for me. I absolutely love that movie. I love her in it.
She's great in it. And I would have to say, actually, it's not a controversial choice at all. Doing this podcast, it comes up, whenever it comes up a lot. And the episode we did on Heaven was one of the most popular ones. So I think fans of Cate really love that performance in that movie.
I did listen to that episode, and I was happy to hear that was a nice episode to listen to, because that one's been with me a long time. I love that. And then my third, and this might be also a little controversial. I know the movie's a little divisive. I think she's amazing in The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So I would, those three would be right up there for me, for sure. Yeah.
Connor, what about you? What's your top three?
Number one is for sure Carol. I love Carol.
Yeah.
I love her in Carol. I would say the other two, it's tough. It's probably some combination. I love her in Bandits. It's such a wonderful.
It is a really funny performance.
It's very funny.
It's such an amazing comedic performance. So I think I'd probably have to give that the 3 spot. And then 2, I would probably say I'm Not There is one that kind of sticks with me. Right. Just because it's so interesting and it's so.
So while we're here, let me just say my controversial thing about
You have an opinion about I'm Not There?
I'm Not There. Here's my thing. I love I'm Not There. Okay? Love that movie. I have always been underwhelmed by her performance in that movie. Which I know is a weird, because I do love the movie.
I think it's easy to kind of put it in that camp of maybe like a My Week with Marilyn, or like a performance that's
it is? No, yeah, exactly.
That's bordering on just pure imitation and kind of doing that thing.
If you've seen the doc, she's just doing it, which I get it. It's impressive because I get it. But
I think she's doing a little bit more than just imitating the doc.
I totally will admit my being short-sighted 100%. My memory of it, I remember people ragging on Richard Gere in that movie, right? Yeah. And people loving Cate Blanchett, and me being like, I really like Richard Gere though. It's which I know is a very
Heaven was not a controversial opinion. This one is.
Yes.
Because she is so luminescent in I'm Not There. And she's doing the mimicry. But again, we talked about this full body performance. The way that she moves, watch her not forget the scenes where she's just talking as Bob Dylan. But when you see her silhouette in that movie, it is Bob Dylan. She made her body into Bob Dylan.
Yeah, that I think is into a rewatch. Really,
that I think is the kind of the core of it for me too. Murtada is that I think also if it was a dude giving that performance and you got the same thing out of it, I might agree with you more, Dan. And even if it's a thing that seems more like a casting stunt or however you want to classify it, it's still to me just doesn't really discount the fact that it's so impressive. For her to just be able to kind of cultivate that performance out of it. That I think would be.
I will, Murtada. I'll mail you back my Cate Blanchett card.
It's got to be. So I guess just to reiterate, it's going to be Bandits, I'm Not There, and Carol for me, with a special shout out to The Aviator and Robin Hood, which I like.
Yeah. Oh, we talked about Robin Hood too, so people listening can listen to that podcast. And so, Connor, do you think there is a performance where she's underrated? Maybe Robin Hood or something else? Robin Hood's underrated.
I would say so. I mean, I think that movie overall is a little underrated. It's kind of, I think, easy to shrug that movie off as like another Ridley Scott sword and sandal period piece epic. I think he, as a director, employs enough things to kind of make that movie come to life in a more interesting way than it has any right to be. And I think Blanchett plays a really big part in that. I think her chemistry with Russell Crowe is actually wonderful. I would shout that movie out, I think, maybe as one of her more underrated performances. Because to your point, I think most things she pops up in very, very properly rated. That, I think, would be one that I would say seek out. You know,
also, I feel like Hannah as a whole is a bit underrated these days. She's very good in that villainy in that.
Yeah, she's doing the Wicked Witch.
I love her in that movie. What's Cinderella?
Yeah, totally.
Right. She's the
Yeah,
she's the wicked stepmom.
Yeah.
She loves to play wicked. She does do these villain roles in the studio movies.
You know, it's another one that I wish she was a little. I wish she was a little better utilized in a movie I like. I don't know where Dan, I think I know where you kind of stand on it, but I really like Knight of Cups.
Yeah, she's great in that.
I think people kind of, even people who love Terrence Malick, I think kind of look at it as like slightly lesser Malick, which I don't agree with, but I don't think she's featured quite enough in it. But I do think the moments she has on screen are truly effective, and I think she is in those regards. I mean, she pops up in two of his movies, I suppose, so maybe he felt the same way too. But she does feel very much like a Terrence Malick actor to me. Calming presence to even just look at on screen, combined with the presence that they can carry. And I think he tends to rely on the physicality of his actors a lot because of the lack of dialogue in his movies. And I think she's a perfect actor for that.
I think Knight of Cups could have used a little bit more Cate. If you
Probably. Yeah, I would never be opposed to that.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
So my last question to you about Cate is there a director or a genre or an actor that she hasn't worked with that you would like to see her work with, or?
Well, it's happening right now. She's in Nightmare Alley with Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
Which if we're talking about Cate as acting with an A, which she can do well.
Yeah.
I don't know if either of you guys have seen the original Nightmare Alley.
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it.
But that is start to finish acting with an A in a way that I love. I mean, I'm a pretty big fan of that movie. That's kind of Tyrone Power, who's a movie star. I love, though despite his limited abilities, I love him as a movie star. And he had a sad end to some degree. Nightmare Alley is kind of the back end of his career, and it's the type of weird, like, that whole movie is, you're like, oh, Tyrone, you're just trying stuff now finally, whoa buddy, like. And so I'm excited for that Del Toro adaptation. That's going to be good, and I think she's going to be working with him, which I guess maybe they worked a little bit with Hobbit, like he obviously ended up not making those movies, but I'm excited for that. And they're they were going to shoot in Buffalo. Maybe not anymore.
I think they shot in Buffalo.
Some of it in Buffalo. Yeah. So, represent, you know what I mean? Alma mater. Anyway.
What about you, Connor?
I was just thinking about this. I think, I don't know about director specifically. I think maybe a number of directors could probably do this. And I don't even know that this is something, at this point in her career she would even want to do. But I don't believe I've ever seen her like try her hand at being like an action hero, which I think, given her penchant for physicality, in the right hands, could be something I think super fun to watch and fascinating to watch.
So you want her as James Bond?
Sure. Why not? Maybe I was going to say maybe not even something so flashy, like, give her a vehicle like a what's the like a rhythm section, like something like that.
Right. I was going to say what's Cate Blanchett's Peppermint?
Maybe again, like maybe not even like I don't even know if I want her in like a Luc Besson style like female assassin movie or anything like that, but maybe just some kind of like a bare knuckled neo noir where she's some kind of like detective of sorts or something like that, like where she gets to kind of really be like she's always been tough, right? Even in Elizabeth or things like that, like she always has that. She's always had this kind of commanding or intimidating presence in certain regards.
She plays exceptional people a lot, whether a monarch or a genius in Bernadette.
Yeah, I would like to see her, be commanding and almost like a nitty gritty Jack Reacher of sorts. I think would be something like that.
Yeah,
Macquarie. Why not Chris Macquarie? Put her as the lead in like a Chris Macquarie action thriller.
Yeah, and she can use her penchant for accents. She can do like a whole bunch of them all in one movie.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
bring back Irina Spalko, right? Like just bring it all back.
Well, guys, this has been great. Thank you so much. It was such a fun conversation. Thank you for coming on Sundays with Cate. And before we go, why don't you let people who are listening know where they can find you and your work?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at DJ Mecca, and I'm always writing stuff for the Film Stage, filmstage.com. I just, if you're listening semi-recently, I have an interview with Sienna Miller coming out for her movie Wander Darkly. A few reviews up there as well, so you can check it out. All that stuff, and then Connor will tell you about the podcast.
Yeah. So we do this podcast, the B-side for the Film Stage. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at TFS B-side. We're also on Facebook as well at that same handle. I'm on Twitter at ScruffyLookin'. As of this recording, we just recorded, I think, what'll be a really cool episode that I hope people enjoy. We got to have a conversation with Alessandro Nivola.
Nice.
Yeah. And so that was a lot of fun. We talked about a couple movies that he wanted to highlight from his storied career. And so that super nice guy, really great talent. And that'll be a cool one. I don't know when people will be listening to this, but either way, it'll be on our feeds by the time you are. So you should go ahead and check that out.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Connor.
Thank you.
In the third season of Sundays with Cate, I will continue reviewing the filmography of Cate Blanchett. Some of the movies we will be discussing include Elizabeth the Golden Age, Notes on a Scandal, Cinderella, and of course, as I have been promising, a deep dive into Carol, a mini-series of up to 4 episodes about that seminal 2015 film. This season, we will also be taking a few detours to discuss other actresses I admire, some who are in movies currently on release, and others who were in movies with Cate. Like perhaps a certain dame with whom she had a bit of trouble in Bourgeois Bohemia. Who wouldn't want to spend a Sunday with her? But the focus of the podcast will continue to be Cate Blanchett. Let me know what you think. You can find me on Twitter at me_says, or find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Sundays with Cate. You can also comment at sundayswithcate.com, where you will find all previous episodes and show notes, or wherever you get podcasts. And until next time, thank you for listening.